mainstream type sources or so forth, if that's what they're interested in, then they're starting to see an incongruency between what they're hearing there and what is actually happening, and that's serving to get them to question on a level they may not have done had an event like this not happened. And so that leads to a lot of different questions, reflections, perspectives, and so forth that allows us to really start questioning on a deeper level what's actually going on, what type of world we're living in, what type of world we're creating, and where we might want to go. So that's essentially what we're going to talk about. But it looks like he's back here. I was just for the people that were already, you said we were live on Facebook, I decided to give a quick little rundown there as to some of the stuff we were going to chat about.
Okay, great. So we're live on Facebook and YouTube now. So
I'm going to click live as well. And then.
Yeah, so it's showing all good on that end.
Okay.
Technology can be fun at times, but.
Yeah, indeed.
All right, we're good. So now to focus our attention on us getting together today to get to play.
Yeah, that's all. Again, we've had a few conversations with regards to some of the stuff going on here, and we decided, hey, it would be a good idea to bring this to a larger audience, to have even greater dialogue on some of the opportunities that we have here, because obviously there's a lot of opportunities, a lot of possibilities coming up when anytime our lives are disrupted, as we like to say, right? And you almost have a blip in the normal everyday life that sort of keeps us, whether it's distracted, whether it's just focused on the normal aspect of life. And it's funny because, and I'm sure you've had this experience, and this could be a good place to start, but I've had a lot of people reaching out with this is sort of the number one, I'll say, complaint. I don't know, now that I'm not distracted by going to work and doing all these different things, like I don't really know what I want to do, or I'm not really feeling totally fulfilled. And I realize I wasn't even feeling that fulfilled when I was at work, or when I was doing the pushing the papers around and doing the stuff that I'm doing. And it's interesting that is one of the big things that's coming up right now, beyond all of the perspectives of what's actually happening out there, that this personal reflection seems to be coming up in so many people. Have you seen that as well?
Yes, absolutely. And this, if anything, when we look at it, it's the most opportune, how can I say it, staging that we have done for ourselves. Because when we are so distracted, running around, doing whatever that we're doing, we never really spend the time, unless we are completely uncomfortable, to look at anything. So now the uncomfortableness kind of shifted around so that it's uncomfortable because now we are stopped and we can't distract ourselves. And now we're looking at it and saying, okay, here I am housebound or whatever it is, or working through certain rules and narratives and whatever else. And how is this now feeling for me? So certain things are going to come up, certain things are going to also play out in their life, but now there's a more self-reflection. And with the break, it actually gives you a time to get off that hamster wheel and really look at, wow, because look at it this way, Joe. There's a part of people turning around saying, oh, we want this to come to an end. Okay, right. So we can go back to our lives. All right. But I've also noticed with people, when I'm communicating with them and so forth, they like this. They really wanted to extend it further. And so sometimes you hear the message that comes from the mainstream media, oh, we're going to extend this X period of time and so forth, and go, oh, God, we're stuck there. And others are going, oh, this is cool. I get to spend more time with myself, or to really look at certain things in my lives. So it's very empowering. I mean, this scenario doesn't matter how it came about and where what the narrative buying in. There's nothing to shake me up so that I can actually look at something different than what I've been living every day. So we've created that scenario. Is it really a plague or whatever is going on, or is it really that real? Yeah, if you put a focus on it that it's real, we can go through the realism experience and have that and, use it in that respect. But we also have the opening of saying, I really want to give to any part of whatever is being offered, and how could I utilize it? So what I want to do today is, our conversation is to be outside the box sort of thing.
Yeah.
And really not to narrate any part of it or what people want to hear or whatever it is. We want to give, really, the purpose of this conversation is to stimulate people what they already know inside, or they've been, feeling inside and not have responded towards looking at it and say, oh, okay, I'm going to go this way or not, right? So it's really looking at all of that. Let me just close this. There we go. All right. So it's really looking at things much more clearly for our own self.
Yeah.
So, because a lot of people ask me the question, and I'm sure you've looked at it and say, well, we don't know what to believe. We have one story coming here, and then we have other stories coming here, because you've got the mainstream, you got the alternative, you got the spiritual.
Yeah.
3 components, right? And so which one is it? Well, really, it's all of them in a sense. And it really relies on judgment, we can react to all this stuff. And then the spiritual part can now look at it and say, oh, there's the dark and the light. I have to be the light bearer, and I got to neutralize the dark. And these are the dark. And this is the whole thing, right? As long as we're playing within that, we have to realize that we're creating more separation. We're creating more polarization. And it's really not our natural state, but we can do it until we get to the point. And this is the point that we're really staged ourselves to, is coming to, how do I want to see from my current collective scenario that I have in my reality at the moment? Okay.
Yeah.
And not looking for the boogeyman, not looking for and condemning any part of it. Because even in the spiritual part, you got to see the perfection in it and say, okay, great. Light and dark are all still part of the very essence and the fabric of all existence. Light, you're never in your true essence of your own capacities and power, or
Right.
what we call power. I mean, it's your own capacity. So these are the things that, we've staged for ourselves at the moment to look at and say, okay, how do I choose to navigate from this point? So look at all the stuff that's happening right now. Okay. And you see it, you're in it all the time because you're reporting, you're considered the alternative, I guess.
I like to say independent media.
Independent. Okay, so independent media. And I know you focus on neutrality, you focus on not, going one way or another, which is very powerful, because people in their natural state is that way. However, and say, okay, there's bits and pieces of all of this, and how do I choose to shape it now?
For sure.
And this is the thing. This is the spell, and I'll let you say what you have to say, because I want to talk about, what we've done in this game. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to add to that. It's going back to the choice thing. And I mean, this might relate to what you're about to say, but it's like, when you see all the information, when you bring together all the different, say, facts, or at least, we still have to take some sort of action on something. And it's like, and this is where the challenge comes in, because, the way you provide this different perspective on something, and it provides this opportunity for us to question the deepest core of, who we are, why are we here, what do we want to do, what choices do we want to make. The external world is allowing us to see how, we've created our reality and how we respond to our reality from the current way that we're thinking, being, or however you want it. And it's really difficult I shouldn't say it's really difficult. The message is very simple, but people are having a very difficult time wanting to grasp on and, let's say, commit to energetically changing the landscape of how our world functions. And it just seems like that message is difficult to get people to commit to, because they're looking at it and going, but Joe, they'll say, there's still 5G being deployed. There's still a totalitarian state being deployed. And I go, yeah. So if you want to shift that, being in fear is not going to help that situation. And so, I wonder how much we can expand on and talk it too. And I don't want to cut off what you were going to say. If this leads into that, it's kind of like, the message is there, but helping people come to terms with really feeling how this is the beginning aspect of the action. How would you expand upon that?
Yeah, and that's an excellent point. It does work in with what we're talking about. So let's take a look at that. Okay. Yes, for change to happen, we have to take action. Okay. It's how you take the action. Okay. Feel that in one way or another, the action is to fight. Say, okay, right? The 5G or whatever's coming out. Okay. It's being presented. All right. So you look at all the facts. You look at whatever you're being provided and say, okay, how does it resonate for me? I choose to see it very differently. There is no proof that it actually is conducive to our physicality. Yeah, maybe we'll have faster internet. Maybe we'll have whatever it is. But until we can prove that it actually doesn't have any negative consequences, we want to see the steadies and whatever. So the point is, when we're talking about being self-empowered, we're not looking at, oh, I'm just going to meditate and just, envision whatever. That's a start, okay, because you want to quieten the chatter in our head. But, really what it is, until I feel I want to comply or agree upon, this is the action I take. So in fact, if you want to go and say, I'm going to go fight all these evil things that are going on, you're basically feeding the very essence of what keeps us trapped, because either you're in victim state and you're not trying to be an aggressor to fight back because you feel that you're in prison because of whatever is being rolled out, that you have no say in the matter, and that's an illusion too. Or the fact that you say, okay, I am not choosing or agreeing at this point in time to have this be presented as something. So now you come together and saying, we are making a statement. We are not agreeing. We're not convinced, because really anything that has to be rolled out has to be proven that it has pros and cons and benefits, and it has to run one way or another. It goes right to leadership. Okay. What information from various sources, and then put science behind it or whatever it may be, okay, and says, okay, this is what we have. We have benefits going into this, and we also have proof that it may not, right? Or may cause detrimental scenarios or situations of that nature, right? So now you have both. They're presented. So what the leaders or governments or whatever do is saying, okay, as an opportunity for us to use this new technology or whatever it is, or new regulation or whatever it is. These are the pros and cons. However, it's up to us to agree for it to go one direction or another, or we hold off and do more investigation to it. Nothing is just rolled out on a whim by certain individuals or anybody else. The fact that you put somebody in place, what we call power, which again, they're only a spokesperson for you, but they have to listen not to the people in the sense of, I got to listen to every whim. We got agreements. We have to get agreements from the people. So the compliance, I do not comply, and I now choose to request, and collectively, because look at it this way, it doesn't matter who says, who makes up any law, rules, or anything else. There's no power given to it. There's no effect to it until the people buy into the idea that, oh, we got to do this.
Right.
It doesn't matter if you're in the police department, military, or you're in certain whatever roles and positions, unless you agree. And look at what's happening right now. How many people are coming up and saying, we're getting mandated this information.
Right.
We're told to react this way, and this is right and this is wrong, this is what we're receiving. However, our experience being on the front line, being involved in this, is not indicating any of the things. And in actual fact, it doesn't even make any sense.
Right.
That's the beauty of it, because now they're looking at it and say, okay, this is not making any sense. Who's making up these rules? And how did they come about it? When the numbers don't match, when the methods that we're using doesn't match, or, whatever. So that puts questioning for us to look even deeper. So that's an action that you take. And an action is, okay, I'm not going to be gullible one way or another. I'm going to look at it and then see what really totally makes sense to me before I actually move forward. So now you can go and say, a group of people can come together and say, we're not going to go riot, but we're going to make our point very clear. We do not consent. We're not choosing to support whatever we are being handed out until you can prove to us with backup facts and also test results that this is something that is beneficial in one way or another, without any piled up negative consequences. It's no different than when you see yourself a bottle of pills that you're prescribed, and you're looking at it, or even the ads that they used to have. And I don't even know if I had, because I don't watch television, but oh, take this will relieve your migraine, but it can cause heart disease, liver damage, whatever it is, right? They had to kind of disclose it. So now you're looking at it and say, okay, a relief in my head right now, is it worth all of these other things that it's creating in myself, right? Yeah. So it's really about that in the broad sense. So I'm not saying you stay around and just follow whatever is going on and you swing one point or another. You don't want to go into an angry state where you're saying, oh, look at what they're doing to us. No, you look at it and say, this is what they're presenting.
Right.
Okay. but what they're presenting is not making any sense to me, and we're not in agreement for it. So now let's make that known. So the action is still taken, but the first action we have to take is within ourselves. And the first action we take is that we have to go into a state of looking at, am I actually self-empowered? Because we are. But the thing is, we create the story we're not, okay? Because of beliefs. We have to look at, right now we're breaking, more and more people are breaking out of the spell-like trends that we are in. Because all of us have been conditioned and programmed to respond, to feel, to look at things, and to follow rules, but also to put people on pedestal of saying, they're the rulers, whatever they say, we got to follow. Or that this is real in the sense they have power over us. That's the programming part. From a deeper inside, that is not true. And you know that that's not true. Right. Okay?
Yeah. And I think what's interesting about that is when people are hearing this, let's say, for example, there's a lot of people on your channels and my channels where this is all streaming to at the same time, you know, that are like, yeah, I agree with all this, but there's so many people out there who don't get it and who aren't there, and we need the numbers to grow and grow and grow. And, you know, people will say like, oh, you know, I don't know if I can get that message across to people without sort of yelling it out there or trying to fry their brains or trying to give them the most, you know, out there information. And I think this is too where when we're talking about practical tools, where, you know, we also got to ask ourselves the question, it's like, how do we most effectively share this message, right? How do we most effectively, and what you talked about with the anger is, it's not just that it's like people have anger towards, say, you know, the government, whoever's doing this does. They also have it towards those that are complying within society. And so it's like, well, not only have you created an enemy over here, but you created an enemy over there, and we're all going to fight. And in a lot of part of the conditioning too, is the governments, or you could say whatever, social engineers and so forth, purposefully trying to feed into that divide. And if we give our power to that divide, then we're going to continue to have that. So it's like, if you're the type of person that's coming into a lot of these understandings and you want more people, because a lot of times we talk about, hey, we need to take mass action, right? We all need to not comply, not just 10 of us over here and, you know, 20 of us there, whatever. Then think, what is the most effective way to get others to comply? Do you want a drill sergeant to come up to you and yell in your face and scream at you about how you're an idiot and asleep and a sheeple and this and that? Or would you rather say, hey, here's one piece of information and here's another piece of information. Here's a couple different ways of looking at it. How do you feel about them? Do they make sense? Like you almost gotta, like, you know, go up to individuals and share this information from that same state of peace, from that same state of understanding that, you know, you feel you're trying to create within yourself. And if you stay true to that, then going out and sharing this information with others, that's how you create the receptiveness. Whereas I see a lot of groups and alliances and this and that, where there's this idea that it's like, well, it's still us as this group who gets it against the group who doesn't get it. And we're trying to wake them up. And it's like, but if we're all unified in theory, but also in reality, when you look at quantum physics and the 0 point and how, you know, again, all the stuff that we were talking about earlier, it's like, why would we want to treat one group of people one way and then another group of people another way, and so on and so forth, right? It's sort of getting to this space. And these are, again, going back to the simplicity of the practical ways for us to, you know, how do we serve in this time? How do we make an impact in this time? How do we, you know, blah, blah, blah. It's like, get into the clear space within yourself, and that's how you act, right? That's how you can actually make an impact, is lovingly and kindly and openly provide information to other people and see how they think. And I think there's ways we can definitely create, like, for example, there's already people going outside. 2 people now in our area here around Toronto and the sort of surrounding area have been fined like almost $1,000. One guy was up doing pull-ups on a I guess like a park, some sort of pole that you can do monkey bars on by himself, $900 fine. And then a father takes his 3 kids out rollerblading, you know, $900 fine. These events, as much as it sucks for those individuals, these events, when they spread, Gets people to go, wait a minute, are we actually living in this world? Hold on a second, this is actually happening. And then you know what it's going to take? Hundreds of people, thousands of people just go out and enjoy the outdoors. They don't have enough police. And the police are people too. They're going to go, wait a minute, what am I enforcing here? Right? So even when people say, well, the elite has the ultimate power, they're always going to be able to do what they want to do. Don't forget that the elite needs people, the military, even the local governments, the police to comply. Right. But they're all individuals, right?
Yeah, they're all exactly, and they need the compliers, or else they have no say in the matter. So in a situation of that nature, yes, first thing you need to do with someone, you now get to that neutral space of yourself and say, okay, I'm going to see the game for what it is. There's these narratives, there's this other understanding. Let me look at it. Let me see how it feels and so forth, right? And if you have anger towards one system or another, or other individuals that are asleep, then that's an emotional program response that, right, wrong, good, bad. Now, for you to go to somebody and say, hey, you're wrong, people shut you down. Nobody wants to be wrong, right? However, you have to understand that somebody that's in a sleep state, most likely you've been in there too. And you've now actually looked at certain things because it started to come into yourself and say, oh, I got to look at other aspects of this or other perspectives and see what resonates for me or whatever it is, what makes sense to me. So what I find with people, if you're going to go present to somebody, okay, listen, I found out all this information, you can present it that, look, I've gone into research mode, because I'm not so open to the idea of just hearing what, the mainstream or anything else is being said. So what I've done is I've started to look at different aspects. I've started to look at different things that are playing out. And I started to not only look at it, but I also came to the point of observing through my observation that maybe these things need to be looked at in a different way. And this is some of the things I've started to notice. So when you're going to somebody and say, hey, listen, this is what I've been observing. So somebody goes to you and says, oh my God, we got to be careful, whatever it is. And you go, yeah, I can understand where you're at. And I can understand what, you're saying. Absolutely. And many of us feel that way or have felt that way too. But I'm also noticing that there are some inconsistencies. I've also noticed some of these things. And through my observation, that doesn't hold the same impact for myself, right?
Yeah.
So what happens is people going, oh, maybe I need to look at this. Maybe I need to open my mind to just kind of look at the other sides of it, because nobody wants to be stuck in anything, but nobody wants to be wrong either. So it's not about wrong. It's opening up another perspective. Okay. And so there's like, oh, okay, there is another perspective. It is not exactly how I thought it was or anything of that nature. And maybe I should put a little bit more attention in this area. For example, look at all this stuff here. Even what you just said, somebody goes and brings their kids to rollerblade, gets fined. Somebody's doing the monkey bars, they get fined, right? And it leaks out. Guess what? It stimulates people to the point of going, okay, this is getting insane now. Okay. Yeah. So this is actually helping us to get to a saturation point of questioning ourselves, questioning what anybody is saying at any point in time. There's even people, enforcers, that have now speaking up and saying, we're doing our job. We're being told it doesn't make any sense, but this is what we're doing. But the more people that are saying, this doesn't make any sense, that part of them is going, absolutely doesn't make any sense at all, and already that starts to change. Now, the moment you get to the point of opening yourself and being in that neutral state to look at different things and look at what your direction, you're already streaming that on a very collective point from that connection point, because we are all one, right? So we're all aspects of each other. So it's like that 100 monkey experiment, whatever you want to call it, that actually, a few monkeys figure out something that all of a sudden all over the world, these monkeys are able to tune into that. They never seen it, but intuitively, they respond that way. So each one of us are starting to more intuitively respond to what other people are realizing. That's the first part. The second part, you're going to share stuff publicly. Okay. Look at it. You're getting both sides of it. You're coming in and saying, okay, we got to look at both sides. All right. We're not here condemning either side. We're not here to say, I'm a radical on this side or a radical on that side. I'm looking at the facts. I'm looking at the information that's there. And if there's dubious, I'm going to dig even deeper, because really we want to stimulate that looking at things much more clearly so that we can actually make a decision how we want to respond. So are we going to comply or not comply? But the choice of complying or not complying, you have to get to the point of saying, okay, I can see all parts of it, and now it's my choice. And we all have a choice. It doesn't matter what anybody mandates. Like you said, if people all of a sudden tomorrow morning all stepped out of their house and started walking down the street, walking through the parks, and here comes the police and whatever else, are they going to come with riot gears? No. They're going to go, oh, well, whatever, But the people are not going there as rebels. They're not going in there as righteousness or I'm going to fight. People are going, we're done playing this housebound game, and we're now going to enjoy the outdoors. Okay. So what happens is, even if an officer or whoever, groups of people are coming in and saying, I got to reinforce this, they're not coming in opposition, because the only power they have, even from the instructions they get, is if you get resistance. We're not going in as resistance. We're going in as non-compliers, and we have chosen to be outside. We have chosen to go in the parks. We're chosen to communicate with each other. We've chosen not to wear masks, or whatever the story is. But the choice is coming from that.
Yeah, the key there is, and this happens a lot with people in that are let's say that are in the alternative viewpoint, is the police can become the enemy, right? Where, okay, so now the police is the person that I have to go and stand up to and oppose. And, so much of what we will do, and we've done this with, let's say the elite, if you want to call it that way. I know not everybody loves that word, but that's just kind of the best way to describe it. The shadow governments and so forth. We've dehumanized them. And then we go and we dehumanize the police officer, where now all of a sudden it's like, well, all I see them as is opposition. And it's like, well, remember, they're a human that just has a uniform on. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, maybe you can't fully reason with them, and maybe they temporarily take you and put you in a little box in the back of their car for 5 minutes while they write you a ticket or whatever. But it doesn't have to incite all of the anger, because the thing is, and I always tell this to people all the time, and I have so much experience with this, with emails or with speaking to people who aggressively are trying to attack the work that we've been doing. So, they'll come and they'll say like, oh, I can't believe you're doing this, or you're terrible. They're trying to impose some sort of restriction on what I'm doing or what we're doing here at CE as a whole, and and it's like, you come back with them, you say, hey, I see where you're coming from. You're not an enemy to me. That's the state of being, right? I see where you're coming from. Here's my intentions, why we wrote it this way, a way to look at it, And these people either come back with a long apology. I'm so sorry, I did not mean to do this, but I really see where you're coming from. Or they just go, yeah, I appreciate your apology. I still don't agree with you, but I appreciate it. And what have you done? You've created a connection. You've created a long-lasting impact that states, that police officer may have got out of his car to go up to that group of people non-complying in that park and was like, maybe hand on the gun or the taser, almost ready to go. I'm about to, there's going to be a fight. And then when they're met with peace, they're like, holy shit. Maybe not everybody, and it starts to shift. And if you don't see it in that moment, you might still see it later. Like they may have it sticks with them, right? They remember it. And I think we forget the power sometimes in those small instances, the way those interactions, whether it be with an officer online or whatever it might be, have this really long lasting impact that you may not see right away. But if you're committed to a state of being, you're not even doing it to say, hi, I want to get that reaction out of them in 5 days. you're just doing it. That's just, where you come from. And I think that's an important note. And, again, too, with the, where I think this is kind of exciting too, where we might be able to lead with this is, as we see all this stuff, right? Like a lot of people will send me stuff and they'll say, look, like the totalitarian measures are getting stronger. Like I got a note today, I think it was local here to Toronto. The Canadian government is now looking at trying to essentially, they're in talks about how they can fine online resources or take legal action on online resources who are not complying with the COVID-19 mainstream narrative. And like, this is what they're talking about. And, the first thing to look at, it's like, anytime they go to the legal route, they're desperate. Anytime they use ridicule and name calling, they're desperate. And what does that mean for them to get desperate? They're feeling their power diminish, right? And so they start to get desperate, which means that's great. Hey, it's moving towards what it needs to do. But like you said earlier, every time an action, a news story like this comes out, people go, oh my God, oh my God. But it also makes people think, right? And then so, that leads to, okay, well, you have the mainstream and the alternative, right? And this is where I want to lead with this, is the question of what world do we really want to live in, right? Because it's like you have the mainstream and the alternative. And so the mainstream might have a set of facts, and the alternative might have a set of facts, and they might be different. But in a lot of cases, they're both entrenched in this political belief system. All the stories and programs around how the world should function, how it should be. You can be listening to mainstream or alternative, and they're saying, well, the facts aren't right. We need to restart the economy. But you still have to question, looking at either one of those, do we want to restart the economy the way it has always been? Is that the world we really? So it's not like, again, one's right and one's wrong or whatever. They're both typically playing in this very limited idea of what life should be and what the world should be. And we have this opportunity to ask, what world do we really want to live in? So I pass it back to you for that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where it comes into. Now, when we are looking at what world do we want to live in, we have to really ask the question deeply in ourselves. And, because what I find is a lot of people respond, well, I want to have a good job. I want to have money. I want to have a house. I want to have toys. I want to have this. And I want to be, accepted and loved or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. That's all programming still, right? When you dissect that, because I've worked with people for 35 plus years now in doing private sessions and whatever, assisting them through different stages in their life. And there are people that I've worked with that has all of that. I've got the toys, I've got the perfect partner, and I've got kids, I've got, lots of money, whatever it is, I got everything. But there's an emptiness, right? Why is the emptiness? Because they never really access what they really, really wanted to experience in their world, because they followed the dream, which is a projected idea of a dream. Mm-hmm. And now saying, well, the dream is not, it's like eating cake all the time. It's making me sick because I get the rush, but I also get the crash, and to the point where I can't even stand it anymore, right? So the thing is, we have to look at it and say, okay, forget about having money, forget about having a perfect job, partner, whatever it is. I'm not going to put that into the equation. How do I feel within myself is really the reality I would love to experience. How do I see my world reality and the collective reality to really look at? So is it about striving, survival, or anything of that nature? No, it's about flourishing. So what do people want? People want freedom. People want to express naturally, not what they're conditioned to express, to live a life where they feel, I can do whatever I want to do when I want to do it without impeding anybody else, because everybody else is another aspect of me. But how do I see the world? So the point is, right now, you made a very good point. Do we bring the world back to where it was, where everybody's going back to work, everybody's doing whatever they're doing, and they're doing the grind, or whatever they call it. They're following a dream, a projected idea of what life is about. Because many of the people that I've worked with that are in their elderly ages and come to some realization, they look at it and say, I would never do that again.
Right. Yeah.
That way. Why? Because they never got to live life.
Right.
Because their focus was tomorrow, 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 being if I get enough money and I get the kids through school, I get this, I get that, or whatever, and then I'll live. But then they get to the point is now I can't even live because my physicality doesn't support me. And second of all, I feel wasted now. So the point is, it's not about getting back into the grind. You have to look at it. Does it actually make sense? Is it something I want to support? Is it really who I am? And when I say who I am, is really that genuine part of you. What did you come here to do? What did you really want to experience about life? Did you come here to play? Did you come here to learn? Did you come here to become more enlightened? Did you come here to embody the human experience and really experience it to its max without all the boundaries and limits and whatever else? A lot of us have most people have gifts or what you call talents or skill sets or something of that nature that they really wouldn't put out there. But again, the monetary system or whatever else, which is an illusion, we created that all ourselves, and we look at it. So we have to say, okay, how do I really see the world? How do I actually see myself? And if somebody wants to do the practice of seeing themselves at 65, 75, 80, 90 years old, and look at their life and say, would I just redo that again?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people won't when they look at it, because they say, no, I want to see things, to live life now in my terms, in the way that it feels natural for me. A lot of people say, well, it's natural to do this and that, but that's programmed idea of natural. True natural feels natural, and there's no question about it, and you don't feel confined in it. You were going to say something, or?
I was just going to add to that, just for the nuance, is those people that are older wouldn't look back sort of in a place of regret even too. And I think it's important, because sometimes people will say, oh, well, I regret that. But it's like, it's really more so the state of observation. And I know you meant this. I just wanted to say it so that people that are listening can kind of say, it's not like, oh, I regret, oh, I would never do that again. It's more like, it's this empowering state of going, hey, I've experienced that now. And no, I mean, I would love to do it totally differently. It's an excitement to do it differently versus that sucked, I don't ever want to do that again. So I just wanted to add that, so that, really just kind of showing that this is kind of the state of being, that it's more of a playful, exciting reflection of our past, as opposed to a judgmental, that was terrible,
Well, yes, because, the thing is, for us to be able to judge anybody or anything, or even our life stream of any sort that we've experienced in our life, is that we have perceived ideas, what's good or bad about life, or what was acceptable or not acceptable in our life, or whatever it is. We can't. Life is an experience. Life is a journey. Life is a dance that you dance every day. It's us, every opportunity we had, doesn't matter what we've had, always served in one way or another. Okay. However, we're getting to a point where we want to be more on a fast track, more on a movement of saying, okay, I want to align and create my reality according to what I feel each moment, because that's what we're in at. We're in a state where each moment is what creates that moment and the next future moment, Yeah. So like I've talked about in the past, there's no past, there's no future. The past is a memory. The future is still to be created. There's potentialities, probabilities and whatever else. And then people talked about different timelines. The timelines really are not real in the sense of saying, oh, that's fixed. Those are simulated projections that we have streamed, and aspects of ourselves are observing those streams, right? So going forward, yes, you're right. You're looking at your life at 90 or whatever, or 100 or whatever it is, and you say, do I regret my life? Well, it was interesting. Would I do it again that same way? No, I wouldn't. But there's an observation, and that person can share it with others. And I've seen that happen, where people go, and I know sometimes people say, well, I made the mistake. No, I followed this path, and these are the things I experienced, but I also realized I didn't get to live life. I didn't get to live life the way I wanted to live life.
Yeah.
Okay. And most of us are starting to feel that more and more. And this actually, this pause in our regular world and the shaking up that's going on is giving us an opportunity to look at that more closely and say, how do I really want to carry on with life at this point? And what direction am I going to go? So it's really seeing the perfection of everything. And right now, we can't say that the world is screwed up. Okay? The world is presenting us in vivid color with very intensified energies of what we've been playing, what we've given power to, what are our possibilities, and how do we want to handle it from now? What do we really want to do? What really resonates for us? Doesn't matter who was in elites or whatever is in power or whatever else. All they did, if you look at the back end agenda, they're saying, okay, we want to conquer a planet, we want to take over, whatever it is. That, again, the narrative of that is maybe the underlining part of it, but the deep truth is, I'm going to accentuate an agreement that we made of showing you massive polarity, massive limitation, and massive disempowerment to the point you reach saturation, and then you make a new choice. And that choice is, we're not going to play with this. We're now really bringing ourselves up and say, okay, now I'm going to create my reality. As kids, we come in ready to play with reality and really not bind ourselves in any way. We get programmed and conditioned of what is acceptable or not. And then that creativity, the imagination, the thrill, the excitement of what we came here to play with starts to diminish. That kid that wants to explode in you is there. So it's time to bring that one out and say, okay, we already have skills. We already have experience that we've had. Doesn't matter what age we're at. Now, how do we bring that excitement, that playfulness into this reality? So when we're looking at the so-called rulers or elites or whatever it is, they have been of service. You have to look at it as service because we've agreed to have that massive polarity, separation, domination, whatever you want to call it. And now we're getting to the point of saying, are we done playing the game? Do we need to have them in place? Can we say to them, I relieve you of your responsibility. I relieve you of the role that you had to play. I thank you, first of all, for it. And I love you for taking such a challenging role. But I relieve you from that responsibility. We're now going to come together as a unit and decide and design how we want to see life. Because everybody has that spark within themselves. We just dimmed it so much. Now it's about bringing it to the surface and say, okay, let's collectively, how are we going to design our life? But it starts with us. So first we have to say, how do I see my life? Where do I want to put my attention in, my focus on? What do I want to still see real and not real? Because you have to look at it. The key here is to come to a realization. This is all made up. The whole game is made up. All of it. Every part of it, every law, every agreement, every part that we built around us that looks real is made up based on belief systems and ideas that we've adopted and collectively reinforced or whatever it is. But it's all made up. The rules of the game is flexible and it's not rigid. So it's like we're going to create a game and we're going to use bits and pieces of it, and we're going to make obsolete certain parts of those rules once we've reached the saturation point of that experience. I'm not going to play the game anymore. So it's like kids going into the playground and say, okay, let's play this game. You play this role, I play that role. Let's go out and play whatever it is. And you get, okay, we're getting bored now. Let's not play this game anymore. Let's go somewhere else. Let's do something else. Let's go swing from the monkey bars, whatever, right? And this is the way the game of whole life is. And people, when you start looking at it, you can feel it inside. Yeah, this is all made up. The rules are made up. Whatever we've chosen, we've made up. And yeah, we even made up the idea that somebody has power over us, and that's okay. But now we're saying, okay, do we still play that game that way, or do we change that? And that's what we're doing now.
Sorry, I thought you were done there. Go ahead.
We've created the stage to do that right now. Joe, you've been in it for a while now. Okay.
Yeah.
Besides doing CE for 10 years or more, you already are an observer from way before that. Okay.
Yeah.
I've been an observer for 60 plus years now. Okay. And what we are experiencing right now along the way is so pinnacle. So we've reached such a climax of it
Yeah.
that we are making such movement, because even you look back, even having a simple analogy of alternative, or
Yeah.
even questioning anything, even looking at natural health or anything of that nature, was not even in the equation. Of course, it started coming in a decade or two ago, but now look at it. It's blossoming. But it's not only just about certain outlets. It's not just about CE and every other person that's giving the alternative or giving you an open-minded perspective. People are coming out left, right, and center. Look, they're coming online. They're just saying, hey, this is what I'm observing. This is what's happening. And I'm looking at this and whatever. The facts don't match. This doesn't match. I'm also noticing, agendas and whatever else. So it's coming in from all different places. Why? Because we are saying, okay, this game that we made up and we agreed and we, consented to, we're now changing it. And we're changing it. And this is why we can have these conversations. This is why people are questioning things. And the amount of fear, look at it this way. You can tell me otherwise. The amount of fear that's being propagated at this point in time,
Yeah.
has increased. But guess what? The push is harder, but the fear is dropping.
Mm-hmm.
Because what's happening, they're pushing anything impossible, because it's coming to the point, any emotion like fear gets to not only a saturation point, but it gets to a point of going, I'm done with this. It's like you become desensitized. And I've seen it with people that were so hardcore. And I have a couple of family members that are super hardcore. What CNN and any other station would say, or whatever the narratives are saying, whatever we're saying, is like, oh my God, the world is ending. This is happening. We got a plague. We got whatever, right? We got all of this stuff. Recently, as early as last week, talking to the same people, now they're going, I started to turn off my TV. I started to kind of look at different things, because something, maybe it's not quite how it's being brought up. Okay. Yeah. Because it doesn't make any sense. Now, these are the hardcore that you would consider not open at all. Guess why? Because they're getting fed up with it. And then when I say fed up, not in a judgment way, it's like, okay, I'm getting tired of this game. And now it's time to look at something else rather than. So look at that. They're doing a service by saying, hey, look, I'm going to just keep fear mongering and whatever, to the point you say enough is enough, because then you say, we're not going for this anymore. And this, you look at it and say, well, the fear mongering is a bad thing. No, because we're still responding to fear. So why don't we just bring it to the max and finally say, I'm done with this. It's like the boogeyman in the closet or under the bed, right? You can hold on to that. Eventually you get tired of it. I don't want to live with this idea there's a boogeyman. Maybe I'm going to open the closet and take a look. Okay. Yeah. Or, I'm going to look under the bed and take a look and then say, oh, there's nothing there. Right. It was always in my mind. And it was an agreement for me to go that. And that's what's happening right now. Yeah. Are we going to end the world? Are we going to self-destruct or anything of that nature? That's not a collective, collective choice that we've made. Okay. And it doesn't matter what direction we go, we will stop it, because nobody is at that point of where we were before that we can do it. Okay. Right. And even eliciting our situations where, other playmates are coming into play, in the sense of other beings or whatever else, we're not going to even, push that to the max. We can, of course, this is an open platform here to play today, but they're our brother, sister souls that are saying, okay, until you get your feet on the ground, we're going to just make sure that you don't fall over too deeply. You can fall over whatever it is. We're just going to just nudge you up a little bit. That's all. We're not interfering with your learning. We're not interfering with your self-discovery or self-empowerment or anything of that nature. And we're not going to interfere in saying, oh, the game is this and that. Right. So what's the purpose of even the disclosure stuff?
Mhm.
The real purpose is to look at there's something more than what we were led to believe. It's
Yeah.
just to shake us up in the sense of realizing, oh, I've given so much power, so much influence in my life by these narratives, these stories, these whatever, but there's a back end part of it, right? So, oh, I didn't realize that. Okay, so now let me take a look at it. Of course, you don't want to respond as they're the demons and that they're the enemy, because that's the last thing you want to do. You don't want to get into who's enemy today, right? They're the enemy of the state, they're enemy of humanity or whatever it is. You want to see that they're role players, there's more to it, and how do I choose to shift that? How do I choose to come together to make a difference in that regard? And that's really what we're here to look at. I can go on more of a rant, so let's see what.
Well, what I was going to say to that too, and like for those like when you're hearing this stuff and you're feeling the resonance, right? Like for those that are watching and like, hey, I feel this, but maybe you're looking for the physical world examples, or maybe you're looking for what's going on, like for example with the alien, the extraterrestrial thing, right? Where you're talking about it, it helps us expand too, and it's like, but they'll also let us go through our journey without interfering too much. Like for those that have seen some of the research that supports that, it's like, for example, humanity could have potentially launched nuclear weapons, in the past. And there's been a number of testimony that's come out that shows that extraterrestrials seem to be concerned. And by concern, it's not that they're scared, it's they realize, you look at a child and you say, oh, okay, if I give them that toy, there's a good chance that they might hurt themselves. So you're not like, well, I'm so scared of them hurting themselves. You go, well, they're just not ready for that toy. So I take that toy, and when they're a little bit more ready, I'd say, hey, do you want to still play with this toy? It's up to you, right? And that's kind of the reality of this situation, where it's like, yeah, there's extraterrestrials have shot down nukes in the past and so forth, and that also lends very much to this idea that the ETs aren't there to save us. Otherwise, they probably would have come down and did it already, right? So they're not there to save us. They're just there to kind of guide. And the self-empowerment is the message here. And, when we're talking about this idea of becoming self-empowered and becoming, I'm working on a course right now just to kind of let the cat out of the bag, about becoming sort of an effective change maker. I don't know what else to call it, but that's what I'm looking at right now. And it's this idea of how do we actually step into a state where we change our internal state enough that it begins to reflect differently in how we create our external world, because that's why we're here. That's why we're in the meat suit. That's why we're in this physical body, to play with an external world. So the consciousness has to inform how we play with the external world. That's why we're here. So how do we become effective in doing that? And it comes down to this idea of self-empowerment. And right now, there's a lot of people sort of, we'll say, debating or arguing over whether or not there is an alliance that's working to take out the deep state and arrest them all, or whether there's not an alliance and that's just like a psyop. And I keep telling people, like, look, you can go back and forth. You could probably spend a lot of time filling the facts on either side and really trying to figure out which one's which. But here's the reality of the situation. Regardless of either of those being true, where is the human-driven self-empowerment across the board in either of those narratives? It's not there, right? So even if you're sitting there and you believe one narrative or another, the action that can still be taken right now is, instead of sitting around waiting for the deep state to be taken out, if that's what you believe, what world do you actually want to create? Let's say the deep state is taken out. Let's say this happens. Who's going to tell you which world to create? What's it going to look like? What do you want it to be? Have you, deprogrammed, for example, or let go of the ideas of what you accepted the world was when they were, quote unquote, ruling everybody? So you can sit around and you can wait for this thing to happen. And then let's say it does happen and you go, well, now the group that just took them out, are they going to tell us what the world's going to look like? You know what I'm saying? Who is that group? Where's their consciousness at? Where's their vision for the world? What does that look like? Are we still allowing a small group to tell everybody what the world is going to look like? So again, this is what self-empowerment sort of looks like, even in a very practical sense, as we're talking about all these emerging narratives that are going on, is and this is the reflection we can all make, is where am I taking the action? Where am I doing sort of the inner work that regardless of what's going on out there or what narrative we believe is happening, where is my state of being at? Not only that, but what world am I envisioning, and how deep is that reflection process really going? So that, let's say, yeah, if one day a massive exposure of, let's say the smoking gun, document comes out that shows exactly how all this stuff has been manipulated. Let's say it happens. You're ready to go from a self-empowered state to go, okay, great. I now have all the evidence I need. Beautiful, perfect. Now let's come together and discuss how we want this to go, versus, oh my God, I told you. And then, okay, well, now what do we want? I don't know, because my whole life was centered around just waiting for somebody else to do it, right? So I think that's the thing we really all could be looking at and doing. And while we enjoy the information, by all means, take it in, look at it, but really envisioning the world is a huge aspect of, I think, what we're being called to do.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, a lot of people put a lot of power into the savior idea, where either the ETs save us, or the different factions that are there to take down the system or anything of that nature, and so forth. But we're not spending the time to look at it and say, how do I want to create my life? How do I want to create my reality and the collective reality? How do I actually see the world, right? Because that will assist in already making those changes an easy transition. It's not about removing it. It's allowing the transition to come through. Because we already are working on other systems. We already are looking at something that is very supportive for us, starting with ourselves, and then much more in our communities and groups, bigger and bigger throughout the world, right? So, because look at it this way. Let me give you a simple analogy, and you can observe. People that have been arrested and have been in jail for a long time, they finally get let go, the ones that do, okay? Yeah. The statistics show most of them do go out and do something to get back in prison again.
Right.
Because they can't associate with the outside world. It was better to be in there because they got to know that world. Look at it this way. So the elite's gone. Okay? All of that control structure is gone. And now we go, oh my God, what do we do? Not only what do we do, we got to find a new leader. We got to find some other group now. Okay, maybe it's not the same group, but now you're looking for somebody else to tell you how to live life. And you're basically giving yourself back to that prison with a different, a different player or different players in the game, right? So the thing is, like you said, if you self-empower, you're clear within what yourself that you want to do, then you're open already to say, okay, some of this stuff is dropping, and now we're able to kind of roll out what we wanted to experience. And again, like you said, starts within yourself and then beyond. So the point here, as we are doing that, we're actually, and many of us are, as we already are start visioning this world and so forth, we're going to work together to create the environment. Because realistically, if we were in a scenario, which we have the opportunity to do so, and we're going to look at it and say, okay, I'm not in survival anymore. How do I create an environment that's flourishing for everyone? Okay. Would we put restrictions to new technologies? Would we put restrictions to new medical? We say, oh, alternative, or what we can call holistic in medicine or anything of that nature comes out, and all of a sudden we have to attack it, right? And say, oh, that's fake, this is that, or whatever, or you're not allowed. There are medical people that are not allowed to talk about, oh, that's adjust your diet, take these supplements, and your immune system will boost, and they'll take care of a lot of things for you. Can't even say that because it's showing the opposite, because we need to control all of this. So now we're looking at it and saying, well, if we want to create that environment where everything is nurturing, then we're not going to, restrict any of that. Because a lot of the restrictions is on this idea of money and the idea of, power. Let me throw something, and I know you know this. If you look at the elite and say, oh, they're in for the money, all of these are in the money, it's really humorous when you really look at it. My observation is, wait a minute, they run the banks, they run all the organizations that spit it out of thin air. If they wanted, don't want to be empowered or disempowered and be in control anymore. Now we want to go into that part of it. So once we look at it, why do people do what they do, even corporations, whatever, under the illusion that we need to make money for the shareholders or whatever, or that we need to have dominance in the market because that's how we've been conditioned. But but that's just the carrot that's being used, because if you don't do this, you don't have the money. You can't have your ideal world or whatever it is. The main reason, because they believe that it's just the way they control it. And look at it. If you ask people, and I know you do, you ask people, why do you do what you do? Yeah, first, that's all I know how to do. Second is, I got to do it for the money, or, I can't survive or support my family, or I can't, get my dreams or whatever it is. But then when you ask them the second question, if the money was life on hold? Well, because I got to make enough money to do all of these things, right? And I'm not talking about the odd vacation, the odd, dedication. What do you call it? I'm trying to think of the word, but the odd, little thrill that you may have or something of that nature, right?
Yeah.
Saying, well, we're not talking about that, but we're talking about life, every part of it, enjoying what you do, enjoying connections with people. And that's what we've provided ourselves right now. And that's what we're doing. So it's really about the self-empowerment, like you were saying earlier, and I was saying also, it's about saying, you know, we see the game, we have the freedom to choose the game. Because sometimes what happens, a lot of times, people see the game and they get upset with the game.
Right.
Right? They get angry at the game. They get angry at the players. That's not very powerful. In the sense of, like, oh, I see the game. Am I actually enjoying the game? Do I really get fulfillment? Not even enjoyment. I can get thrills, but am I really fulfilled? Does it feel in alignment with myself? Is it a representation of what I've come here to experience within my own life? You look at that. Oh, okay, this game does not match. How can I now reshape the game so it matches? And what steps can we take? And people doing that are kind of really letting everybody know that we have the freedom to do so. And that's what, you know, stepping into. In resonance with. It's not getting mad at the game, it's realizing it's a game. And the reason that you've played the game up to this point in time, because, yeah, you chose to have that polarized experience for a long time. Now, that polarized experience is no longer. And I know I heard some people say, well, this is a polarized world, right? Mm-hmm. No, we have the opportunity to continue playing the polarized world, but it is not. It was never designed right from the original get-go that it was a polarized. That was introduced later on.
Yeah.
And we won't even go who introduced it, but the introduction was a compliance that we chose to say, let's try this out. Let's see how it feels being disempowered. Let's see how it feels that there are rulers. Let's see how it feels that, you know, we don't realize that we are the actual creator of our reality, or the fact that we are source itself, or the essence of all existence, or whatever you want to call it, right? I want to forget that. I want to have that experience. But now we're saying, been there, done that. We've really, you know, got the t-shirts and everything else with it that, you know, said that we got there, we did whatever. But now that's where we're shifting the direction and saying, all right, now we've done with that game. We're now upgrading the game. So what is the key fundamental thing here? We're upgrading the human experience and the playground we called Earth.
Right. Absolutely. And what was that? The last part?
And how we play with each other.
Yeah. And that's one of the kickers there too, is the idea of, as personal transformation. What I do and how I create, given the nature of everything is connected to me, well, it's got to be harmonious, because, and it's not, I'm not believing, well, it's wrong to go, you know, cut down that tree because it's wrong. I'm not going to cut down the tree because I don't feel like it. If there comes a moment where, hey, we absolutely need to cut down the tree for such and such and such, then it'll feel like it comes naturally from a deep space within yourself, as opposed to all of these different belief systems and so forth about how things need to function. And moving to that state of being begins to create, and this is kind of what I like to challenge people a lot with, is the reflection of, when you're creating something, or when you're envisioning your life, and is it very much about how you as an individual gain prosperity, gain notoriety, gain fame? Like you'll notice a lot of the stuff that people are trying to create abundance on, or attract, or how they want their life to look, it all follows a similar story, which is I want to be well known, I want to be famous, I want to have, such and such car, or, be independently wealthy, and all these different little things, but I want to make impact on the same time. And it's like, okay, great, it's beautiful, you want to make impact, all that, but all that other stuff, where's that story from? Where did this come from? What is this all about? And can we move from that individual state of creating, this is what it has to look like, to, by nature of just connecting deeply, now we're creating collectively, where it's not about, okay, well, I have to give up what I want for the whole, right? Because it's another illusion. It's when you create something, you're creating this harmony, and what do you really want your world to look like in accordance with us all playing and co-creating this together, and sort of stepping into that vision is something I think sometimes we don't do enough per se, because we're not really challenged to do it. We're not really prompted necessarily to do it, because we've been convinced that just our individual self is what this is all about, and how we interact materially is what this entire reality is about. And so we've always viewed things through that lens. And I think we're sort of stepping back into that 0 point, that oneness, that connectivity, the reality, the true nature of our reality, and realizing, who we are and how that state of understanding begins to create differently. And of course, there's plenty of different exercises and ways to sort of prompt that. But, as people hear this stuff and exploring this stuff, they, are there more resources? Are there more courses? Are there more stuff, that I can look into for this stuff to practically step me through it? And I know a lot of resources you've done over the past while, over the past years, lots of workshops, lots of events. What, if you're going to lay out some tools and stuff for people to use that you have in your arsenal, what kind of stuff would you guide them towards that I know you have?
Well, most of all the courses I've put together, all the different workshops that I've done, is really to look at not only our operating system and looking at and really getting a deeper understanding of ourselves, because some of the programs are related to self-discovery, to really, because the point you made, and I just want to elaborate on that a little bit, is that you're not looking at it, say, how do I want my life to be? Okay. And yeah, you're going to look at what is there and it's not there. Where did I get the idea that life should look a certain way? Because you want to have it from a genuine place, from yourself, rather than the program part, because that it gets tricky. The ego mind will say, well, no, we got to have all this stuff before, we can do the other stuff, right? But from a higher perspective, you're saying, from a true perspective, you're saying, okay, we're doing this in alignment. So you look at whatever's going on in your reality and say, okay, what do I really want to plug in? What feels natural resonance and so forth? So you start doing that. But your world doesn't stop in only your limited little bubble. You're connected to all of it. So now you start looking, how do I want to see the rest of the world? How does it feel in resonance, the rest of the world? All these beautiful playmates. Because one of the focus that shifted some while back is that it's all about you. Okay? And, but we have to understand, it's not the only part, is the only individualized aspect of you, which is, a signature projection. It's about all aspects of you, because everybody is an expression of you, or another aspect of you, right? So you're now looking at the big picture, because those are all you. And you cannot improve the dance or upgrade the dance if you're improving yours only and isolate the rest. So your expression to the world starts off with, how do I see the world? How do I see systems and whatever, the connections or whatever it is? So you bring in that, you're now inclusive. You start with you, and then you start expanding out from that. And that's how it works. So going back to the workshops, yes, I mean, depending on where you're seeing it on the platform, I did list out several links. Like I did a workshop just a little over 2 weeks ago. It's bringing the new you out to play in the new world. because as much as the platform is changing until you bring that part of you. So that's very supportive. It helps you look at some of the stuff that we've put so much power into, all the limitations we've had within ourselves. Really, you start to look at yourself and say, okay, there's more to me than what I've, the game I've played up to this point in time, and I really want to understand it. So that workshop is available, very inexpensive too. I also have on the link there, a link to takes you to Teachable, which I have a dozen or so different workshops, all different topics and so forth, that assist us to see things, open our eyes, to really work through, because a lot of us are working through emotional charges, or working through traumatic experiences, or whatever else is going on. A lot of the labels and definitions, because a lot of us do that. We label ourselves. We define ourselves. I am this, or this happened to me and that's why I feel bad, or anything of that nature. Well, you can dance with that for a period of time, but you're now coming to the point where you're saying, do I want to dance with this, or am I going to actually look at it and really truly understand it? Understand how it served, how it no longer needs to serve, because it doesn't. It already ended a long time ago, but I'm still carrying it along. So really, to create a shift within yourself, not only expanding and connecting with yourself more, you're going to go look at all the stories, all the your past history, all the labels and definitions and things that you've applied, and say, okay, do I need this any longer? Do I draw? So you're looking at the options that you can drop anything, and you can see if it's still of any value to you, and you can bring it in your current state and have it. But you can say, okay, I'm going to just do it for a short while and then let it go. So it's really fundamentally all the tools are there for us to self-empower, for us to be able to make that big shift. Now, that's the courses, that's the workshops, and that's all available there. I also have a series that I'm doing that I started several weeks ago, actually a couple of months ago now. And I think we're up to about 20 something different episodes. Well, the episodes, I think we're only up to 17 episodes, but some of the episodes have like 3 parts and some have 4 parts or whatever it is. So it does add up. The episode is absolutely free, and it's available. And it's available on several platforms. It's available on YouTube, and it's called Advancing Consciousness Series. So if you just look for that, Advancing Consciousness, you'll see all of the different episodes there. And each episode, originally the episode the plan was 20 to 40 minute bites of information and processes and whatever else. Well, it never seems to be less than an hour. It's way over into an hour and a half, an hour and 45 minutes, some of the episodes, right? So, but the thing is, the people that are watching it are so into it because it's really stimulating within themselves. And this is what the whole thing is. So the episodes are there. And it's also available on Facebook under the group page called Advancing Consciousness Series. And it's under Vimeo as another page, or what do you call channel, called Advancing Consciousness Series. All of that is available free, available. And, we're open for contributions that, supports, because I'm putting a lot of effort into it. That means I don't do some of the other work that, was monetized and whatever else at this point. So, the support is great and it's appreciated. It's not an expectation. It's just whatever. But so the information is being provided for us to really create a shift within ourselves. So, and it's very neutral and powerful at the same time. I don't take sides, because that's not the way I work. I'm here to really bring that neutrality, that 0 point, whatever it is within yourself, but to see the big picture and basically start to navigate with the big picture. So it's really there as a tool. And right now, a lot of people are at home. A lot of time, people are consuming a lot of information. And this is another piece that actually helps put all the pieces together and get a deeper understanding that already resonates. So what it's really stimulating is what you know and you don't realize you know, or that you know and you haven't put any attention to what you know, but you've played the game and you come to a deeper understanding of it's a game. And you know those rules, you know, all of those things that are in place and all those beliefs that I've taken on and whatever else, it kind of dissects it, breaks it down so that you actually get to the core of understanding more of really how things are playing out. And a lot of the topics are based on past beliefs, and it could, some of it may challenge, not challenge, but actually expose or bring to light a deeper understanding about, you know, even spiritual beliefs, alternative beliefs, mainstream beliefs, or anything of that nature, so that you actually get to the core of it. I'm not the authoritative. I'm just, from my observation, from my own knowing, from my own consciousness, what my soul shares, that's what I provide. And that's what I make available for it. And it's a matter of people just sharing it and observing it for themselves. I've had lots of people comment and turn around and say, well, this is fantastic. You know, I'm sharing it with people that are so close-minded and it's even ringing to them. They're, you know, starting to notice a shift in themselves, and they're starting to shift from fear to more empowered state, or they're shifting from fear to, oh, maybe let me look a little deeper. What else is there? And also opening their minds to a point of saying, I'm not just going to take one stream of information. I'm going to look at the variety that's out there and then see what really resonates for me, and then govern myself along that. So that's what the workshops are about. That's what the content is out there, put out. The content is being pushed out, you know, 3 times a week now. It could go up, it can go down, but at this point it's 3 times a week. I'm doing it every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern time. You can join us live. You can post your questions, and I do address the questions. If the questions are not in alignment with that with that episode, then we keep it and we'll build an episode around that so that we do address it. If there's something that you want clarification on, you know, they can put it in the comment, and Kimberly, my partner, actually reads them out, and then I provide the extra clarity it is. So it's interactive if you join us live. If you can't join us live, then the recordings are there. You know, the video recordings on all those platforms. 3 pages of Facebook. It's on YouTube. It's on what's the other one? Vimeo. It's also on LinkedIn. It's on Twitter. You know, those ones are all under my name, sort of thing. So I haven't put it on Instagram yet. I mean, the links are posted time to time, but so you can find it. Right. It's been interesting because since I started doing that, I've noticed that sometimes our internet is a little fussy about it dropping. So there's some blips here and there. And but in general, if there's enough blips in it, then I upload a copy that because I film everything too as a backup. So you know, it's there, it's available. So sometimes you'll see the original is there, but then I usually put in a clean copy, which is posted also.
Yeah. Well, it's solid that there's a lot of resources out there, lots for people to choose from. You know, again, sort of summarizing some of this conversation, it's like there is, you know, for so long we've been focused just on the information, and less internal work per se, you know, being done with certain things, and people will, you know, hey, why isn't the world changing as much as I thought it would, or why is anything? And it's like, well, first of all, the world is changing a lot. It's changing pretty rapidly, actually, at the moment. We may not always see that, but it is. But, you know, if we want to really get engaged with this, or we want to really sort of be impactful and make a difference here, it's really turning within is a big thing. I've had a lot of people, you know, over even the past couple of weeks saying to me, Joe, you know, you've been saying this to me for years, but I finally get it now, how important the internal work is. And I'm like, you know, that's a beautiful realization, because it is, we can understand something from just a knowledge perspective. Oh yeah, I know that concept. Oh yeah, no, I know that concept. But it's like, okay, but are you living that concept? Is that concept through and through within your state of being? I.e., have you taken all of the pieces, all of the, whether you want to call them energies, whether you want to call them thought patterns, neurological pathways, however you want to look at it. There's so many different aspects to look at this. Have you taken that stuff and let it fall away? You know, letting it go, letting it, you know, sort of be, whether you want to say removed, again, it's so much stuff gets lost in words, but ultimately, have you allowed your natural state to come through, right? Because the natural state's there's a lot of stuff on top. and have you addressed the stuff, let it go, and allow that state to come through. And you'll know, because when you're there, you're not going to feel out of peace all the time. You're not going to feel, like, oh my God, I'm angry, or I got to fight this person, or I got to go chase this, sheeple who's not, doesn't get it. And I need to get in an argument with them online, and I need to attack them, and I need to drop the truth on them. And then I need to do that. You won't be in that state. You'll lovingly know how to share information as you need to. And the work is, the inner work is a beautiful part of it. So I say that because I encourage, we may not always want to go that route, but there's a ton of resources out there. And I believe now is the time to really, really start looking at that. And, Franco has a lot of incredible stuff to share on that regard. So definitely check it out. We're going to put in, once this is done with the live and whatever, all that sort of stuff, we're going to update the descriptions and all that sort of stuff. We'll have the links to a lot of the stuff in there so you can check it out. But also on his social media channels, you'll be able to see links as well. So everything will be there, nice and easy and clear. But do we have anything else we wanted to add to this discussion before we pack it?
We can go on for hours, but
sure.
There's a lot of topics we can talk about. But the thing that you said, the internal work, because when you've done the internal work, and really what does the internal work is, not only bringing that true essence of yourself through, you deprogram yourself from any programming you've taken on, any belief systems that you've taken on, any perception you've taken on, any idea, so that no matter what is going on, for example, I find even in my, and others are the same, and I'm sure yourself. So you see the things playing out, whatever is being dished out by the mass media, what is being alternative, whatever it is. You're not emotionally charged about anything. You're not demonizing one or the other, or you're not, like you said, not needing to fight one or the other, or they're wrong, they're right, or whatever. You see it in a very peaceful state and you say, oh, an interesting observation. Okay. And then you're still in control. You're still empowered, because the moment of fear, a moment of an emotion takes over, of one being right, wrong, good, bad, what they're doing to us, whatever it is, you're now controlled by that. You're not guiding your own self direction of how you respond. So the inner work unplugs all of those. So now you could see the planet and your reality as a playground. You can see it as a very elaborate video game. And I am in charge of how I want to shape this. So that's that empowered state that we were talking about. So you're no longer bouncing from one to the other. So it doesn't matter where you're getting the information. You say, okay, I'm going to bring it in, look at it, and see what can I use or not use, what I would like to share. And then when you're going in, like you said, you're not going in to respond to someone and say, oh, you're wrong, or you're asleep, or whatever it is. You're now going in as an individual saying, you know something? I really appreciate where you're at with this. And I can understand it. I've been there and everything else, but I've noticed a shift in myself by just observing. And by observing, I've noticed some inconsistencies, or I've seen that certain things make more sense than others. Some things resonate more. It feels more natural for me, because when you've done the work, you're neutral and you make a point. You still make a point and an observation, and bring information that would be effective for them to kind of see something different. But you're not coming in with an emotional charge. Oh man, you got to fix these things. We got to knock it down. We got to do whatever. You're not coming in like that.
Yeah.
And then when somebody, like I said earlier, we talked about it before, nobody wants to be wrong. So you don't want to, you're not going to come in as, oh, you're all wrong. You got it all backwards, whatever it is. And you go, yeah, I can understand that. And a lot of people are in that bandwagon and everything else. But I've noticed an alternative part to this, or another twist to this, which I'm now also paying attention to, because I don't feel one or the other. So you're presenting in that. And this is the thing, even with you, Joe. And I know you started this from day one, and sometimes maybe it's been a little hard for you to stay true to that part. You're here to bring information, your observation, unbiased one way or another, not taking positions of going who's right, who's wrong, whatever it is. It's like, okay, this is what's there. But when we do the looking at it, and from a standpoint of who we are and whatever it is, we have the option to use any parts of it or none of it, and really now create something different. So collective evolution is collectively evolving to this grander aspects of ourselves. So if you need to make adjustments, and we all do, to say, basically say, okay, I'm going to stay true to what I'm here to really share, okay, without taking any sides, but being open to see all perspectives and bring clarity that others can make their own decision of what resonates for them. And there's no right, wrong, good or bad about this, but it's really, does it still serve you or not? Does it still support you in one way or not? That's kind of what we are looking at. So does this world really support us in the way that we are wanting to move forward or not? And this is the question that we've been asking ourselves. And this is the thing that we are bringing to it. So, I mean, do the great work that you are doing in that regards, you know, sharing that information. I do my part. When we do collaborate, we collaborate, and it's always a pleasure to communicate with you, because we're kind of on the same page on so many things. And so it's actually exciting, because it's not about, you know, one thing or another. You know, you got your point of view, and I have my point of view. Much of the point of view is exactly the same. We may present it in different words. We may see it slightly different in our particular experiences, but you know, it all goes back to the fundamentals. And God, and life is really simple. The game of life is really, really, really simple. Like you said, it is simple. We just made it look like it's complicated, and we make it complicated, because I hear this a lot of times. You know, it's, oh, this is going to take forever to change. It can change like this.
Yeah.
But it's for us to make the decision to make a change like this, because it's really, the only reason we hold any part of it is just get to the point where we are all deciding, or a large part of us are deciding that, okay, we're going to shift this. We don't need to play the game this way. We don't have to sacrifice life. We don't have to struggle. We don't have to be in survival. We don't have to be in fear any longer, because it does, you know, we've got that experience. We're done. So let's create what naturally feels for us. Let's create an environment. Let's create a reality that we flourish, that we create harmony, because harmony is natural to us. You know, when people say human nature is violent, human nature is, you know, wanting to control and to dominate other people, human nature are violent if they don't get their way, or whatever it is, human nature is, you know, this or that. That is the programmed belief idea that human nature is that way. But human nature, when we really look at it, is very harmonious, very loving, very cooperative, very collaborative. Everybody wants the same thing. Everybody wants to have that peace, that playfulness, that lightness, that freedom. That's our true nature. Our true nature is not wanting anything from anybody or controlling an ownership or whatever else. That was just conditioned and programmed. A playground is a playground. Let's play in the playground. Let's be free with that. That's really, you know, how it actually works, because that's our natural state. Our natural state is very loving. Our natural state is very playful. Our natural state loves to play with other aspects of ourselves and does not dominate one or the other. You know, that's the thing. So really bringing our natural state out will create a very peaceful, playful, light world, you know. I can tell you, as weird as this is going to sound, this scenario that I've just shared with you already exists as a simulation on another universe that has showed what we have as potential and what our true human nature is about and how it's experienced. And it has no borders, no rules, no separation, because a lot of things people say, well, with no laws, no things, people go in anarchy. No, that's only maybe until you purge out whatever's going on. But people will do, that's not their natural state. They won't, right? So that exists, and we can replicate it in an even more grander way, because that's what we want to bring out to the surface. So I'm going to keep quiet now. you you
Oh,
take it away from there.
that's a beautiful, beautiful way to put it at the end. You know, I did a sort of a TED talk, a TEDx talk many years ago. And this is the last thing I'll say here is it's kind of like life is about choices, right? We always have the option. We can keep sitting there saying, well, this is how the world has to be, you know, creating this world that's different. You know, it's too out there. There's no way humanity could do that. We just, you know, it can, okay, go on believing that. If you make that choice that you want to go on believing, you can do that. You have the freedom to do that. And if a lot of other people all have that same belief, like a huge number of people, then sure, we'll play with that for a while. Or you can say, hey, well, you know what, there is a different possibility, and you can explore down that route. And, you know, enough of us start exploring that idea, we make that choice, then we'll start changing and things will adjust. And how fast or how slow this goes and how quickly we want to change things is simply about how quickly we're willing to open up. And there's no rules, there's no science, there's no studies that says here's how long an evolution of consciousness has to take. There's nothing there. You make it up as you go. So what choice do you want to make? What world do you want to put your energy, your attention into? And even when you're saying, oh, I'm being realistic, based on what? Based on what we've done in the past. Why is what we've done in the past reflective of what will happen in the future? Especially when you shift the way you think, you shift your consciousness, you shift the way that you believe things, right? And the last little kicker I'll add is for those that are really holding on to the old idea of, you know, it has to be this way and it'll really take, you'll probably notice too, right? Because there's a collective consciousness. So behind this conscious mind, when you start getting into the deeper aspect of who we are, when you start exploring that field of oneness, right? You start to realize we've already made the choice to shift, which is why all these external events are happening to bring all this stuff up. And so it's only going to become more and more uncomfortable and difficult to hold on to that narrative anyway. So you can let it go and become open, or you can hold on. And yeah, maybe even if a lot of people hold on, then things will just get more intense and allow that to become more uncomfortable. But we're going this way anyway. And, you know, there's no judgment as to how slow or fast or right or wrong, whatever, blah, 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 it's going to take. But just do it. Life is choices. That's it. You know, plain and simple.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And it is a choice. And the thing is too, for us to look at it, anything that plays out from the past and whatever else, I mean, we have to realize, who were we at that time? What state of consciousness were we in when that decision was made, when that was implemented? You know, a lot of people say, well, you know, it's part of history. You got to bring up the history. Well, you got to look at history. The world was a different place. People were a different place. There were different souls on the planet at different times. Why are we still giving power to or validation to an old perception?
Yeah,
We've seen it. You know, we've seen it with many examples. You know, we stay adhered to different ideas. And then when we actually stop and look at it and see that when it was enacted, when it was put into place, what was the belief system? What was their capacity of knowledge or even knowing when it was put into place of the individuals that were involved?
Yeah.
You know? It's like, I think there was an old story of a couple that got married, and we'll wrap it up at that. But they got married, and you know, the husband was with the wife, and the wife was preparing meatloaf or whatever it was, a roast or something. I think it was a roast, and but she didn't have the meat. She didn't have the roast yet, so she sent the husband to the store, and he says, "Well, listen, when you go get the roast, can you make sure they cut the ends off, right?" And he goes, "Why? Why do we need to cut the ends off?" And he says, "Well, that's how it's always been done, right? And just get the ends off." But he didn't buy that too well. And I said, where did you learn from? And he says, "My mother's always done that," right? And he goes, "Okay, I'm going to call your mother, you know, call the mother-in-law and say, hey, listen, what's with the deal on taking the roast and cutting the ends off?" And he says, "Well, my mother taught me. I was always doing it, right? And so we're doing it." Fortunately, Grandma was still around, right? So he decided to call Grandma. I said, "Listen, Grandma, I want to get some clarification, because your daughter and your granddaughter are both under the idea of cutting the ends off the roast. Can you tell me where that came from. And she said, oh, yeah, the reason I was cutting in the end of the roast is because my pan was too small because it wouldn't fit in my oven. So she had a reason at that time because the pans were small and the oven was a little small. But now we're still doing the same thing when the ovens are bigger, pans are bigger, and whatever else. But we never question it. We never look at it and say, where did that all originate from? You know, are we still the same people there? Do we still have the same toys or whatever it is that of that time? And that's really where we're.
And that's where tradition, culture, and religion sort of, come together. And we always want to say, hey, we got to honor all these things. We got to respect all these things. And it's like, again, it's a story, a set of beliefs, it's ideas that started a long time ago. It doesn't mean we need to still play with it hundreds of years or, even 120, even 10 years later. We don't have to do the same thing, right? And it's not to say it's now meaningless or it's worthless. It's just that you can play with that or you cannot. There's no, disrespect, or it's okay to break tradition. It's okay to do things differently. That's what evolution is, right? And again, it's the perception you take into it. But
yeah, actually, exactly, because the thing is too, a lot of times, like you said, a lot of the traditions we take on, we don't question. We just kind of follow the traditions and everything else. But those traditions were in place at a different time with a different understanding, a different way of life. And I know even with my family, especially with my parents, there were two components. Both had religious connections, and if you looked at the story that my mother shared, was the fact that, oh, God demands all these things, and I have to do this, and I have to sacrifice, and I have to earn my wings to heaven or whatever it is, and and I can't be a sinner or whatever it is. And so she shaped all her life to play under a certain set of rules, right? My father was different. He adopted to the point of it's insurance. If I follow the rules, maybe I won't go into the bad place, right? That's all. I'm not going to push it any further. My mother used to go to church almost every single day and did everything under the sun to be able to, gain brownie points. My father was, no, I'm going to do the bare minimum just as insurance policy, right?
Right.
Very different. Now, I don't know if I've ever shared it, but my mother passed away quite a decade or more ago. And so she appeared to me at one point, 5 days after she checked out. And it's funny because I used to play with her all the time, in the sense I used to tease her. And I didn't tease her just to make her angry or anything like that. I just teased her to kind of open up her mind a little bit. So sometimes there was little sparks that came in, especially with all the stories and judgments that she had about, God this, God that, whatever it is, and, Jesus this and whatever else. And all the strong beliefs that, we got to do this, we got to do that, whatever the idea was at the time. And so she would go this and then says, oh, God will condemn us, whatever it is. And I'm going, okay, Mom. All right, let's play with this one. I say, I'm your son. What can I possibly do to piss you off to the extent that you would punish me for eternity? Right? And she goes, oh, I couldn't do that. You're my son. I love you no matter what. I go, oh, okay. So that's a human love. That's the capacity of love you have. You would never do it. You would probably not agree with what I'm doing, and you were trying to tell me otherwise, but you wouldn't condemn me for life, right? She goes, no, I couldn't do it. You wouldn't punish me to the point to death, right? No, I couldn't do that, right? And I said, why do you choose that? Because I love you, right? Okay, so here's God. This ultimate loving being now will condemn you to hell or some fiery place. I'm going back with the belief that she had, to be in that state where you would suffer for all eternity. Now, does that even make sense? And she goes, no, it doesn't. But, we don't know that, right? It was all of that. and I played with her on different aspects around that. But to go back, she showed up 5 days after, and the play that I did with her is I said, "Listen, Mom, when you die, I want you to come and visit me." She goes, "Are you insane? What are you talking about? You come, me coming and visit you? You're dead, right?" I said, "No, your spirit, your very essence to come and visit me, your soul, right?" We're, "Oh, no, we're whatever." I said, "Listen, if you do come back, you choose to come back and just visit me in non-form, I want you to answer 3 questions for me." And I told her the question. I said, "Who's God?" or what that is. I said, "Everything I've been telling you all these years, if it was right or wrong, and why am I here?" "Oh, you're insane," whatever it is, right? So 5 days after she checks out, I'm doing my meditation. I'm in an altered state, and poof, there she is in front of me, right? And I said, "Oh, so you came to visit?" She goes, "I didn't know I could do that," right? Now she's in translucent physicality, her all around. You can still see it was her. And I said, "Oh, so you came to visit?" And she goes, "Yeah, I didn't know I could do that." So, what's your perspective now of things? She goes, "Oh, it's very different than what I believed," right? And I said, "What made the difference?" She said, "When you don't have this," pointing to her brain, which she meant the ego mind, "is it's very different," right? And I said, "Absolutely." So I also said to her, "Can you answer me those 3 questions I asked you?" And she goes, "Yes, I can." So she answered the first one, which, "Who's God?" And she said, "It's infinite essence, source, beingness." She says, "It's so deep in love, in such perfection." I mean, she didn't even know what words to say at that point to express it. And I go, "Great. Now, all the things I've been saying to you, all these years that you kept saying I was crazy, that I was, this devil, or that I was being manipulated or whatever it is, was it actually any of it true?" She goes, "All of it was true. All of it is accurate." Maybe that's the word. And then I said the third part, "What did I come in here?" Because I used to tell her what I was here to do. And she says, "Oh, you came here to share consciousness with humanity and whatever else." So she acknowledged all 3. So I said to her, "So what are your plans now? Are you going to come back?" And she says, "No, it's going to be a while. I'm not planning to come back." And I said, "Oh, by the way, is there a hell or whatever it is?" And she goes, "No, there's none of that," right? And and so forth. So then she left, and 2 months later she showed up again. Oh, the other thing is too, what I wanted to confirm is she had cancer, and then the cancer cleared up. Most of it all cleared up. It was just a small amount was left through certain protocols, whatever. And so that day we went to the hospital, 2 hospitals, to get 2 different doctors to kind of check her out and get a report. And they said, "Listen, first they gave her 2 months to live, get your affairs in order." 2 months go by and they're saying, "Wow, we've never seen this happen before. And you're in really great, you're going to live a long time, because everything that you had there looks like it's almost all gone completely. It's not there anymore." And so, but I didn't realize that was on a Friday, but she died on a Monday or Tuesday, I think it was Tuesday. And so a certain sequence, but I didn't know what happened, why she went from being good to dying, right? Because she didn't die of the disease, she just stopped her heart, right? And one of the challenges she had, she couldn't get rid of two programs. One was the religious program, and the other one was the program of being stuck in a marriage or whatever it is at that time, and being, according to her, God gave her the cross to carry, and which was my dad at the time, because he was kind of, a very angry, very dominating person, right? She couldn't be herself, but that was the choice she made. So I did ask her at that time, I go, "What happened? First you said you're going to live, and then you just shut your heart off." And she says, "Oh, at that time I realized that I had 2 obstacles I can get rid of. And that was letting go of the idea of the religion and letting go of the idea of the of being a slave to your father, type of thing.
Yeah.
And so anyways, so when she came back 2 months later, I said, "Oh, how's it going now?" And she goes, "Oh, well, there's a lot of amazing things in, you know." And I realize now, if I did not have this, that part of it dictating, I could have been a very influential in helping people, in making a shift in their life. I go, "Well, then you can come back whenever you want." And she says, "Well, I don't know when that'll be." And that's it. I never seen her ever since. So
Yeah.
you can see, look, one thing I could say to you, Joe, when I met my mother in that state, I go, "Where have you been? Like, you're the mother I wanted." Or I would appreciate it, because chillaxed, not fearful, not what it was, just like, in wisdom. She was clear, and I only gave you bits and pieces because there was a lot more of a conversation there. But there was stuff that she was sharing. I was like, "Where were you when
Yeah.
we were together in human form here?" You know, I would have preferred that part of it. But the difference was, and she pointed out very clearly, when you don't have this, and when we're talking about when we're not run by programs,
Yeah.
the world looks very different. And you don't have to die to do that.
No.
You basically start deprogramming yourself. The world opens up. The possibilities, the capacities, the creativeness, the imagination expands exponentially. And
Yeah.
you really now reshape every part.
Absolutely. It's that simple. And that's, again, simple message, but are we willing to kind of go through and do the work and go through that deprogramming, which is, I think, again, another one of the questions that a lot of people are faced with right now is like, am I willing to sort of suspend the position that I need to hold on, you know, the alternative or the mainstream and who's right and who's wrong, long enough to actually go, well, how can I really blow the doors off my perception, really just, you know, become my complete full potentiality? And again, another thing for people to reflect on there.
Absolutely. So I think we've given everybody a lot to play with. So
Yeah, absolutely.
thank you again
Yes, thank you.
for holding this connection. We can choose to play again at some other time, and we can stay focused on particular topics. Today was kind of, you know, open up everything, but it's everything that we shared today is really instrumental for what's going on right now and how things will unfold along the way. Because the world is not a scary place. You know, we can hold on to that. We're in opportune times. We're in basically redesign time, and that's really what's playing out.
That's what we came here to do.
Exactly.
That's all. All right. Well, thanks again for this conversation, and thanks everybody for watching. And be sure to share this around. I think it's time people really hear some different perspectives and allow it to seed. Does this feel like it's another way to look at it that resonates a little bit further? Everybody chooses.
Exactly. Thank you again. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.